And welcome back to Touchline Talk on 110 Sports. We're going to wrap up the show today the way we do every Thursday with what's next. Got Europa League action today, just like we had Champions League action these past couple of days. So Thursday, November 5th, this afternoon. Couple interesting games here, which is something you don't always get in the Europa League. AC Milan and Lille. Of course, AC Milan is on this incredible unbeaten run dating back to last season. Top of Serie A. Ibra's doing his thing. This is a good test for them against a Lille team that I harped on Tuesday. Drawing too many games right now. But this is also first versus second in this group. So if Lille can find a way to win, they've got 4 points. AC Milan have 6. Then they jump ahead to the top of this group for whatever that might be worth. Other interesting game, Real Sociedad against AZ Alkmaar. Sociedad are currently third in this group with 3 points. Alkmaar first with 6 after they beat Napoli. So this could very easily change if Sociedad is able to win this game. But it's a big game for Sociedad because we're getting to the point where you're running out of time to make up the ground. Of course, there still is time, just like PSG. You have 3 games left. But it puts a lot of pressure on you because Sociedad should be going through in the Europa League. Doesn't matter that it's a more difficult group. They're playing really well. They're sitting there making a run at La Liga, at least right now. So this is a big game. They got to find a way to win this one, or at least get a point out of it. Otherwise, you're giving yourself a lot of work to do in the second half of the group stage. Arsenal and Molde. Wanted to mention this one because they both have 6 points from their first 2 games. So these are your 2 top teams in the group, which is the same thing that I mentioned about Spurs last week, and then Spurs went and lost that game to Royal Antwerp. So we'll see what happens here, but I wanted to mention this for the same reason I mentioned that one, that this is your stiffer test in the Europa League, in theory at least, for Arsenal. Same thing applies to Leicester City against Sporting Braga. These are your 2 top teams in that group. Leicester, of course, coming off that win over Leeds, looking really good. Can they continue this, put themselves in a really good position, maybe clinch a first place in this group a game or 2 early, get some other guys in there, rest some players, all of that stuff, because they are the best team in this group, have looked like it so far, but this is the stiffest test that they have faced. Then we go to Saturday, November 7th, and your game of the day, Borussia Dortmund, Bayern, Munich. They're level on points right now. Bayern are +4 in the goal differential between these 2 teams. So, right now it's Bayern at the top. Dortmund win this game. They enter the international break in first place in the Bundesliga and first place in their Champions League group. How about that? But these games are absolutely massive for Dortmund. They've played competitively, but just haven't been able to win very many of them recently. And I continue to harp on this point, but it's so important because they're not going to win the goal differential. You got to find a way to make these points up because you're not winning the tiebreaker. And, like I talked about with Leipzig, good luck trying to chase Bayern from behind, especially this Bayern. Maybe you could have done it under some of those Niko Kovac teams. But they were so bad at the beginning of the season that they didn't even give anybody an opportunity to try and catch them. They had to go catch everybody else. This game is huge. Dortmund have to find a way to make sure that they are at least level on points against Bayern this season, or I don't think they have any chance of winning the league. They've been really good so far. I think they're a top at least 8 team in the world. And they're pushing the top 5 with what's happening with some of these other teams right now. They've been fairly consistent. They had one hiccup and they lost to Lazio on the road. That's about it. Holland scoring goals for fun. They've got all kinds of attacking weapons. This is a massive, massive game in Germany. Then you got Everton, Manchester United in England. Both of these teams just need to stop the bleeding and put some points on the board. Everton are clearly not the same team without all of their pieces. That was my question coming in. We talked about in the supporters corner, and their first couple tests without a Seamus Coleman or Lucas Digne failed pretty convincingly. James Rodriguez is expected to be back for this game, which is a massive boost. They also get Lucas Digne back from his one-game suspension that got reduced on appeal. So they're going to be much closer to full strength in this one. Also just got a notification that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's job is not on the line in this game. That doesn't particularly surprise me. I'm also not entirely sure that that's true. But reportedly, he's safe regardless of what happens. This is really intriguing to me because it's two teams in sort of similar but very different spots at the same time, where somebody needs to find neither team is going to be satisfied with a draw out of this, because United need to start picking up points if they have any hope of getting into the top four, and Everton's hopes of getting into the top four are also quickly slipping away if they just can't get anything more than draws and losses without their preferred 11 players on the field, because you're not going to have that every game. So that's a really intriguing one. PSG against Rennes. Rennes are 3 points behind PSG. So if they win this game, they're level on points at the top, with the potential that Lille also wins, and then that puts them up in first place. I mentioned this more just because it's one of PSG's stiffer tests. Rennes have not been playing particularly well over the last stretch of games. After a pretty strong start to the season, they're still doing well in Ligue 1, obviously. But if PSG win this one, it's just another step to making this lead insurmountable. I find it unlikely anybody else will hold first place this season in France. But if there's an opportunity, it's probably this weekend, with PSG facing one of the better teams, because they're just destroying these lesser opponents right now. And then finally, over in La Liga, we have Atletico Madrid and Cadiz. Cadiz in 5th place right now. Really impressive what they're doing. So this is 4th versus 5th. However, Atletico Madrid are 1st in La Liga in points per game. Them and Barcelona had to wait because of their deep runs in Europe to get these games, to get their season started. So they're sort of behind everybody else still and haven't caught up. So I'm looking at Atleti more from a points per game perspective. But of course, they also need to capitalize on those games in hand and actually turn them into points. So this is a pretty good test for them against one of the more informed teams in the league. And they've sort of started figuring out how to score goals again. They had a stretch there where they couldn't score to save their lives. And now it's starting to come back. And I'm reopening my belief that they have a chance to win this league. I really think that. With what we've seen from Real Madrid so far, it has not exactly convinced me. But they're going to have to be a little bit more consistent. They took the beating against Bayern. It hasn't always been perfect, but João Felix is scoring a lot of goals right now, playing well. They got a shot. So this is a really interesting opportunity for them. And then we go to Sunday, your other massive game this weekend. Manchester City, Liverpool. Of course, title implications here. City currently 5 points back of the Reds, which means I think they have to at least get a draw if they want to win the league. You only have 2 opportunities, of course, to go head-to-head. And Liverpool are going to drop some points. It's not going to be like it was last season. But the resiliency they've shown and the ability they've shown to generate results without all of these players is incredibly impressive. They have not had any trouble motivating themselves after winning last season, because that motivation was obvious for all to see. They hadn't won the Premier League. They were desperate for that, to lift that trophy. But they've shown the same kind of fortitude so far. And then you've got some interesting lineup situations here that I alluded to a little bit earlier. Gabriel Jesus came back off the bench against Olympiacos for Manchester City. That's your striker you have available in this game. So is he ready to start? Did he just need to get a couple minutes under his belt? And quite frankly, you're just not all that concerned about Olympiacos, so you know you can get goals through Raheem Sterling and Ferran Torres and be fine. Because I really think City is a different team when they have a striker. It allows Sterling to go back to the wing and just allows them to play more the way they want to. And then on the Liverpool side, it's who starts at striker as well. Like I talked about, Diego Jota is scoring goals at a ridiculous rate. He's playing out of his mind. And this is a decision that Jurgen Klopp has never had to make before. Firmino hasn't been quite as effective recently. And that was one of the flaws you saw in this team, is that there was a staggering drop-off from that front three to the guys that would replace them off the bench. And I mentioned that when they got Diego Jota. He's been even better than I expected him to be, but he's clearly, I mean, you saw it at Wolves. He's a very, very good player who's going to have a place in this team for a long time. I didn't think he was going to contend for a starting spot in these kind of games this quickly, but here we are. I would be surprised if he doesn't get the nod over Roberto Firmino. And I'm one of those people that will always point to the little things and the dirty work Firmino does and all the things that don't go on the stat sheet. It's not just about goals at the striker position. He's incredibly valuable, and Jurgen Klopp knows that and has been very open about that. But the way that Diego Jota is scoring right now, the form he's in, I just don't think you can make that swap. So that's something to keep an eye on there. Leicester City Wolves. Leicester playing really well, even without some of their key pieces. Wolves have 10 points from their last 4 games. They've really started to turn things around and are climbing the table as a result. Lazio, Juventus, these are your 2 big games in Italy. Lazio is 10th in the league, 6 points out of first, 2 points behind Juventus. At some point, if they want to make a run at the Champions League spots, they got to win some of these games and start closing this gap. It's been a rough start. They're starting to turn things around a little bit, but it just hasn't been good enough so far. And then Atalanta, Inter Milan. Atalanta 4th, Inter 6th heading into this game. Inter Milan only have 1 win in their last 7 games. Again, tough schedule, plenty of draws in there. It's not like they've lost all of those. But Inter need to find a way to start winning some of these games against the teams in direct contention for the title. Atalanta, coming off the beatdown they took against Liverpool, could also really use a statement win. And everybody's chasing AC Milan. AC Milan already have their win in the derby. They've had a more favorable schedule, but they've had, I mean, they're not playing the bottom of the league every week. And they've gotten the win so far. And the draw against Roma. This is becoming very interesting and harder to look at anybody besides AC Milan as the favorites here. It's still early for me to be completely sold on that, but this game is going to go a decent way, and this weekend in particular. If Juventus show up and take care of business against Lazio, and Inter win this one against Atalanta, I feel very differently than if Lazio comes away with at least a draw and Atalanta wins this game. I'm starting to doubt Atalanta's ability to contend for this title just because they're not scoring at the rate they need to. We've talked about that before, so we'll see what happens this weekend. That's all we've got for today, though. Josh Mulnooks will be back with his show tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. Chris Brown is taking this week off from Around the Bases. My European Soccer Top 25 will come out sometime tonight. Be there for you tomorrow morning. Be sure to check that out on 110sportsmedia.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Check out everything we're doing, all of the great content we've got going on on the website. Again, 110sportsmedia.com. Thank you so much for listening to Touchline Talk today, and we will see you Tuesday.